Well, don't forget, guys, to hit like, hit subscribe, hit follow wherever you're watching this video from whatever platform. I want you to share this with your friends. I think this will be very enlightening given recent events that we have been watching unfold in the United States of America. Now, this is something that I normally don't jump into on social media like this, and I will dive into this extensively, things like this, in our revival meetings. But this is not something I normally jump into on just a social media video in a setting like this, but I just felt compelled today, based on the things that I'm watching, the things that I'm reading, especially from people in churches who are trying to turn Jesus into a mascot for their political agenda. Now, my wife and I went to Phoenix, Arizona back in December. Right at the end of the year, we went to America Fest, which is a political event hosted by Turning Point USA. And at Turning Point USA, there at the event, there were over 30,000 people there. It was a fabulous event, very well done, very well hosted by Erica Kirk and the Turning Point team. And I want to be up front. There are a lot of people in the, what you would call the conservative movement, who are not believers. And they did have a whole thing, a whole section of the conference, of the 4-night conference called Faith Night, where there were many great preachers like Kenan Clark, like Greg Laurie, people standing up for conservatism from their Christian worldview. And when I came back from that event, when my wife and I got back, we were just kind of reflecting on the things that we had heard, the things that we had seen, the people we had met. And the ultimate determination that we came to was this: we do not want to turn Jesus into a mascot for the conservative movement, in the same way that I do not want and hate to see people turn Jesus into a mascot for the radical left, which could not be less representative of the true gospel, by the way. But I did come to this conclusion, and I hope that many of you do as well, that I am not I'm not conservative because I'm not Christian because I'm conservative. I'm conservative because I'm Christian. In other words, I read this book, I read this word, I see what is in it, I study what is in it, I do my very best to live out everything that is in it. And because of my Christian worldview, I lean conservative. I do not lean Christian from my conservative political views. I lean conservative from this being the foundation. And what many people do on both sides is they find a political ideology. They find something that they ascribe to politically and socially, and then they make Jesus the mascot for it. And that's when we get things very, very backwards, like this topic of illegal immigration, which is a very hot button topic right now. And President Trump ran and campaigned on the idea that he was going to have one of the largest deportation operations in the history of the country. Now, in today's modern nation-state society that we live in, with many different nation-states, we have laws about this. We have laws about immigration. We have laws about people coming here legally. And I don't know where people on the other side get the idea that the right is anti-immigration. I don't know anyone personally that is anti-immigration, but I know a lot of people that are anti-illegal immigration. And here are a couple of things that we're tired of. We're tired of our young ladies being kidnapped, raped, and killed. We're tired of fentanyl coming across the border. We're tired of sex trafficking. We're tired of things like that. We're tired of people coming across the border illegally and then getting our tax dollars. Those are some things that we're not too excited about. But one thing that has really driven me crazy, to be honest with you, over the last couple of days is how many times I have read from well-meaning, I'm sure they're well-meaning, and the more I read it, the more I just think that maybe they have been brainwashed by a terrible victimhood, everybody's racist ideology. And this is one of the things that they're saying, that Jesus was an immigrant. I cannot tell you how many times I have read this. I've read it from people I see on social media. I've read it from evangelists. I've read it from all people from all walks of life, that Jesus was an immigrant. I saw a post around Thanksgiving that said, "Don't forget to hate refugees as you set up your nativity scene for Christmas of Jesus being a refugee with Mary and Joseph." And so I just began to do the research. Was Jesus an illegal immigrant? Was Jesus a refugee seeking asylum? Is there a problem with taking those words the way that they are meant today, the way that we see them today, and applying them to an event that happened a few thousand years ago? go? Well, let's dig into that and let's look. Number one, here's the number one problem with calling Jesus an immigrant or calling him a refugee, and that is that modern political categories do not translate clearly into the ancient world. It's not the same world. They didn't even use the word immigrant back in that day. So you have people ignorantly posting that Jesus was an immigrant, and they wouldn't even know what that means. When we say immigrant or refugee today, we mean someone that is crossing national borders from one sovereign nation to another sovereign nation using visas, asylum laws, citizenship, political systems. And so just know, in the first century, there were no modern nation states. There were no immigration systems. There were no passports or visas or green cards. The concept, there was not a concept of citizenship as we use it today. And so applying the 21st century political labels to Jesus is a little bit anachronistic if you want to know the truth about it. Number two, and this is very important because people have asked me, well, Nick, why did they even say that? Why did they say that wasn't Jesus a Jew? Yes, he was a Jew. Why did they call him then an immigrant or a refugee? And the reason is from Matthew chapter 2, when we read that Herod was killing all of the babies because he found out that the King of Kings was born. And so Joseph and Mary take Jesus and escape and run to Egypt to escape Herod. Now, here's something they don't care to tell you, because they would rather falsely call Jesus an immigrant than tell you the truth. And the truth is this: Egypt was a part of the same imperial world. Both Judea and Egypt were under Roman rule. In other words, it was under the same occupation of people, and it would be the equivalent of you leaving, say I'm in the state of Tennessee right now. It would be the equivalent of me leaving the state of Tennessee and moving to the state of West Virginia, or like a lot of people are doing, leaving the state of California, I can't imagine why, and then moving to a state like Florida. And that's the equivalent of what Mary and Joseph were doing to escape the rule of Herod, who was running the area of Judea, but he was not governing the area of Egypt. It would be like a governor doing something in this state, so you leave and go to another state to avoid, I don't know, the harsh taxes or the homelessness or the drug epidemic or something of that nature. And so that is what Joseph and Mary were doing. They were not immigrating, and they were not refugees seeking asylum. This was very common in that time. It was legally permitted to do at that time. This was something, again, that a lot of people did. They would just go from one sovereign place, they would go from one place to another place, but it was not one, it wasn't fleeing one sovereign nation and crossing borders illegally and coming into another sovereign nation. And by the way, just to throw it out there, you who want to call Jesus a refugee or an illegal immigrant, I don't think that Jesus went to Egypt with Mary and Joseph and set up a fake daycare and fraud the nation out of billions of dollars, for example. I don't think Mary and Joseph were bringing fentanyl and cocaine into the country and killing hundreds of thousands. I don't think Mary and Joseph were kidnapping and smuggling and sex trafficking and doing all those sort of things like, the illegal immigrants that many people on the right side of the aisle actually have problems with. Number three, Jesus was not resettled or assimilated into a foreign culture. I want to say that again. Jesus was not resettled or assimilated into a foreign culture. When you immigrate into a new culture, even the very word immigration implies that you are moving somewhere that is going to be more permanent. You're going to stay there and you're going to assimilate and you're going to become a part of the culture. That's one of the problems with the immigration. There is no, right now, a lot of them are coming. There's no assimilation. They're trying to bring another culture into this culture, like say Islam. And I just want to say to you, Islam is not compatible with the West, and they're bringing this radical jihadist Islamic ideology into America, and there's no assimilation. And if they would try to assimilate, they would find out that Islam is not compatible with the West. And so Jesus was not resettled or assimilated into a foreign culture, so you can't call him an immigrant. It doesn't make any sense. And so refugee status, like today, if you were to call someone a refugee, that involves a permanent displacement. It involves integration into a new society. It involves long-term loss of their homeland, or it involves the dependence on a host government, and like getting government benefits to stay in a place. The host family went temporarily. They returned as soon as Herod died. We're talking about Mary and Joseph. They were there very temporary. They went back as soon as Herod died, and the purpose was to fulfill prophecy, by the way, because he was emulating what Moses did. In the Old Testament, it talks about out of Egypt was going to come. Hosea 11 and verse 1, out of Egypt I called my son. This was not to achieve status as a refugee or an illegal immigrant. This was to fulfill Bible prophecy. If you want to get theological about it, Jesus was not fleeing poverty. He was fulfilling prophecy. Jesus was not, it wasn't even really on the surface, it was an act of fleeing violence and fleeing what Herod was doing, but deep down it was fulfilling prophecy. And to call him an immigrant is not just ignorant. It's very shallow. It's a very shallow, uneducated view of what Jesus actually did in the scriptures. Jesus's flight was because of a targeted assassination threat, actually. It was a prophetic parallel to Moses. It was a divine preservation of the messianic line, and it was a temporary concealment. It was not a resettlement. I want to say that again. It was a temporary concealing of Jesus so that the enemy did not end the plan of God prematurely. It was not a resettlement. It was just temporary. This is not in any way what we call today immigration and seeking refugee status. And so now this isn't to say that Scripture is unconcerned about all those things. It's just to say that we've got a lot of people right now trying to make Jesus the mascot for a far left woke ideology. It could not be further from the truth. And I just had to get on here and set the record straight to some people who clearly don't understand why Jesus was in Egypt, because I don't know if they just haven't read the prophecies, or maybe you should be reading more prophecies, but you're reading more posts on Facebook than prophecies in Scripture. And maybe we should get back to what the Scripture actually says about these things. And so I'm going to challenge all of you to do that. Wherever you're watching this video, God bless you. Thank you for tuning in. Now, turn this off, get back into the Scriptures, and find out what the Bible said about Jesus before you get on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram and see what your radical left followers and friends are saying. God bless you.